Hilchish Gogis Perik Shmini. Now, until now, we were learning the halachas of chatois akvois, which means when a person did one of those 43 avedas that the Rambam mentioned, so he did it b'shegig, so he has to bring, and he knows that he did it, so he has to bring a chatas kvo. Now we're going to learn the halacha of an oshim toli. An oshim toli means that there's a person did something, and there's a suffix whether he did one of those avedas. Now we'll have to see what the situation is, but the pshat is he did something, and there's a suffix whether he was over on one of those 43 avedas. So the din is that at this point in time he has to bring an oshim toli. When he finds out for sure that he was over, he's going to have to bring a korban chatas. Mashenkin at this point in time, until he finds out, since he's in a matzav where he did something, which there's a suffix whether he was over on an iser, he has to bring an oshim toli. That's din number one. Now there's a shaila on b'chlolus dik shaila, because we're saying he did something which there's a suffix whether he was over on an iser. Now the Rambam shita is that sveika deiraisa min hatera is lekula. The fact that sveika deiraisa lechumra is only midrabon. The Rambam says it many times. So lechura, when there's a suffix, he was eva isa deiraisa. So when you have a maim of the matzah, there's a suffix whether this is isa deiraisa. So lechura, the principle of sveika deiraisa min hatera lekula would mean you're allowed to go ahead and do it. So now that he's looking back in hindsight and he's saying, I did something, which is a suffix if I was eva isa deiraisa. So if the din is that the etzim, you'll tell him he's allowed to do it. So how could there be a chiyuv for being a suffix? Maybe it was eva isa deraisa if he would have been allowed to do it lechatchila. So there's two answers to this question. One answer is there's a girsa in the Rambam in Tumas Mes where the Rambam writes that this din of sveika deraisa is lekula minatera is only by stam yisur, but minigay yisuri koris over there the din of sveika deraisa minatera is lechumra and einachanami, and if a person was over on this sveika deraisa, which minatera is lechumra, and lepel he did it, so then the din is that he has to bring an oshim toli. So knows the emes was wrong because he wasn't allowed to do it because lepel, and for doing it he has to bring an oshim toli. That's one teretz. It's not so sure if that's the proper girsa. Then there's another teretz that this din that sveika deraisa lekula is only when it's not igba isura. There was no established isur. You have something, you have a piece of, let's say, chaylev, you don't know if it's chaylev or shuman. So it's one piece, and you don't know what it is, if it's asur or mutter. So then you have a din of sveika deraisa min hatera lekula. Mashenkin, if you have two pieces, one is asur and one is mutter, and you don't know which one is which. So over there, that's called ikba isura. There's already an established isura. The question is which one is which. So over there, then there's a din that sveika deraisa in such a case by ikba isura would be lechumra, and then there's only then is the din, as we'll learn b'hamshech, of oshim toli. Oshim toli you don't bring for just a suffix. There's a person ate something and we don't know whether it was chaylev or not. Oshim toli you only bring if there was a suffix which b'chinas ikva yisura, there was an established suffix, which we'll learn b'hamshech, and only then if you did it, so then you chayav an oshim toli. So that's the two tirutzim of how could there be a chayav oshim toli for doing an isur b'shegig. The Rambam holds that is surah deiraisim and atera lekula. The answer is either chayv krisis are different or ikba isur is different. That's number one. Now there's another issue over here, which is, you say this is the issue, we maybe just talk about it before, there's a din that if a person did something, which now he has a suffix, whether he was over on an isur deraisa, he doesn't know if he was over on isur deraisa. Like we'll say in a case, there was chaylev and shuman, and he ate one of them, he doesn't know if it was chaylev or shuman, so then there's the din of oshim toli. The question is, did he do this b'shegig? Are we talking about a case where a person was aware that there was chaylev and shuman, and then he went ahead and ate it anyways, even though he knew that one of them was chaylev, one was shuman, and he doesn't know which one. And now he's coming along and he wants to do tshuva, so to speak, so you tell him to bring an oshim toli. Or no, or the pshat is that it's talking about the shegig, he didn't realize that there was chaylev or shuman. There was chaylev here, and lepel, there was chaylev there, and memela, now he has a suffix, whether he was over on this isur of chaylev b'shegig. But if he would have been amazed, so then he wouldn't have been chayv on oshim toli, because just like a korban chatas only comes for a shegig, not for a amazed, so an oshim toli also only comes when a person did something which there's a suffix, he did it b'shegig. Masha'engen, if he did it b'mezid, so there's no din of oshim toli. Now there's a shaila about it. So the mice is there's Rashi and Tesis and Krisos, they name on the pshitos that the din of oshim toli is only if you did it b'shegig. If you did it b'mezid, there's no din of oshim toli. There is a Talmid Rabbeinu Yena that's brought in Shittim Kobetzis and Ksubis That over there he says that in Oshim Toli, even if you bemazed, you went ahead, you knew that it was a Suffolk Chalev and Suffolk Shuman, nevertheless, and you went ahead and you ate it, now you could bring a carbon, you bring an Oshim carbon, Oshim Toli, because Lepela wasn't mamish such a mazid, because Lepela was a suffix, so therefore that would also go into the category of something which is Chayv and Oshim Toli. Now, Benegei Shitas HaRambam, so many Gleli Achreinim, Nemon, that Shitas HaRambam is like Rashi and Tesvis, that holds that the whole din of Oshim Toli is only b'shegig. And that's also Meduik, we'll see in common places in the Rambam, that this din of Oshim Toli is only if you ate this suffix b'shegig. In other words, it was not like you knew that there was a suffix, and if you'll do it, there's a suffix, maybe you'll be pigea b'isr. It's only talking about if you did it b'shegig. If you did it b'mezid, it wouldn't be chal. There are achreinim which argue with then they hold that the Shitas HaRambam is that even b'mezid you're chayiv, and they bring rayas. There's rayas brought against it. Maybe we'll mention later on in Halacha Daled. Like L'chur in Halacha Daled is very clear that the Rambam is being medayik that it has to be dafka b'shegig and not b'mezid. Okay, now we'll start. Perik Shmini. Kol chet shechayoven al shegagos chatus kvuah. So the din is chayoven al leiheda shalei oshim toli. Umahu leineda. What does it mean leineda? Im nistapikle im shogag. Again, the Lashon HaRambam is im shogag b'dover zeilei. His suffix is whether he was shegig b'dover zeilei. It doesn't write nistapikle if he did it. Nistapikle im shogag b'dover zeilei shogag. So then the din is harezeh mitzuvah lahakriv oshim. Shneimar v'leyoda v'oshem v'nosa aveinei. And the pasuk finishes off v'hevi ayel tomim and atzein be'erke choloshim. So you have to bring an ayel which is a zocher, and that's already in the second year. It's already in the second year, a year plus a month, and it has to be be'erkechem for the shtei kesef la'oshim. V'zeu hanikra oshim toli. It's called oshim toli. Why it's called oshim toli? Because it's not an absolute kapara. Mepnei shu mechaper ala sofik, and only v'telele achi yivadeli bevadi shechote b'shgoga, and then v'yakriv chatosi. So when he'll find out that he was taka chote b'shgoga, so again b'shgoga. So you could always tie it b'shgoga means because it was echad mishtei chatichas, but I'll call upon him achi yivadeli bevadi shechote b'shgoga v'yakriv chatosi. So that's the din of oshim toli. If a person did something and he's a suffix whether he was shogag, there's a suffix whether he was a shegig, and he did one of these averas which is chayiv achatus kvuah, so then he has to bring an oshim toli. Halacha beis, eini chayiv oshim toli ad sheyeh sham isur kavua. There has to be an isur kavua. In other words, the suffix has to be not stam a suffix that maybe he was chayiv, but rather there has to be an isur which is called an isur kavua. The Rambam takes choice kesa. Ochel chelev, person ate chelev. He knows for sure he ate chelev. Aber v'suffix im hoye kezayis ipachas mikezayis, but he doesn't know if there was a kezayis on what he ate. Oi, another case where there was a ikvak isura. Oy shehoysel lefon of chatichas chelev v'chatichas shuman, and v'ochel achas mem, and v'ein yedeh ezim mem ochel nachatzir, where we know for sure there's chelev there, and he doesn't know which one he ate. Did he eat the chelev or did he eat the shuman? Or another case, ishtei v'achesi imei babayis, and bo al achas mem, and v'ein yedeh ezim mem bo. That's another case. Or Shabbos v'chel, there's Shabbos v'chel, and v'asa malacha be'echad mem, he did malacha be'echad mem. Pashas, he did it between Hashmoshes, between Shabbos and chel. And he doesn't know which one he did it. In other words, he doesn't know if it was on Shabbos or on Chel. Another case, he did a malacha b'Shabbos. He doesn't know if me'ein ezem malacha asa. Now this is a shveret vart, because l'chura we learned before that when a person knows for sure that he did a malacha b'Shabbos, it's just he doesn't know which malacha he did. So on one hand he can't bring a chatos, because there has to be al chatosi asher chata, he has to know which aver he did. But on the other end, he can't bring a nosham because he knows for sure he's chayav achatos. In other words, he did something which is chayav achatos. It's just that he doesn't know which chatos he's chayav for, and therefore he can't bring a chatos. So what's the case that he was also malachim Shabbos v'leyadim ein ezem malacha asa, which sounds like he doesn't know which of the 39 malachas it is. So the pshat they say in pshat Rambam Azay that it's talking about in a case where he already did a malacha. He did a malacha b'Shabbos. Now the question is now he's doing another malacha. He's doing now another malacha in Shabbos. And the question is that other malacha a new chiyuv chatas? So then he would be chayav a new chatas. Or no, this is part of the old chiyuv chatas, so Memela would be shnei and behelim echad, so therefore he's not chayav chatas. So B'amas over here there's a suffix if he's chayav chatas. The reason why, when a person doesn't know which malacha he did, he's not chayiv in Asham Toli, is because we know for sure he did something which is mechayiv chatos. He doesn't know which chatos, so maybe it has to be a chatos eshachata. Masha'inkin over here, when he brought, he definitely did a malacha b'Shabbos, but he doesn't know if he did a malacha together with the other malacha which he did b'helam echad, and therefore there's no chiyav chatos, or he did a new malacha, and therefore there is a chiyav chatos. So in such a case, even though he knows for sure, like a chiddush, that even though he knows for sure that he did a malacha, but since he doesn't know if there was a chalois chiyav chatos over here, because maybe it was me'ain the other malacha or not, so then he also brings an Asham Toli. That would be the pshat. That's one pshat. She'asa malacha b'Shabbos v'liyada me'ain eze malacha asa. So in all these cases, the Rambam says, hareza maybe Asham Toli v'chein kol kliyetz b'zeh. So all these cases are a case of ikva yisur. In other words, there was an established isur. There was chaylev, he doesn't know if he ate a kazayis. There was chaylev and shuman, he doesn't know which one he ate. There was an ishtei v'achese, he doesn't know which one he was bail. There was Shabbos and chayil, he doesn't know when he did a malacha. He did a malacha, he doesn't know me'ein eze malacha also, like we're saying, he knows he did something, but he doesn't know if this is part of that malacha or that malacha. So in all these cases, hareza maybe Asham Toli. V'chein kol kiyetz b'zeh. Aval m'hoyse lefonav chaticha achas. Safik shi chaylev, safik shel shuman, or and v'achla is pater. Sharei ki ein kan iser kavua. Since there's no iser kavua in the first place, he doesn't know if there's chaylev here. So in Mele, even though there's a suffix, but lepel, that's not considered a suffix which is mechayiv and Asham Toli. There was no ikva yisura. And v'chol ha'eichel hakoi, chaylev hakoi. When there's a koi is a suffix chay, suffix behema. Now chaylev of a behema is iser koris. Chaylev v'chay is mutter. A koi is the suffix chay, suffix behema. So it's a suffix whether his chaylev is mutter or aser. So the din is pater mi Asham Toli. Why? Again, shari ein kan iser kavod. There's no established iser. There's a suffix whether it's chaylev that's aser, chaylev that's mutter. V'chein haboal isha she suffix nida. He came in an isha which is a suffix nida. Oy suffix erva shel kirov basar. It's a suffix whether or not she's a kreva. So in all these cases, it's pater mi Asham Toli. Pater mi Asham Toli. Why? Because we don't have an ikba yisura. Lefichach. Ha'isha shenimtza dam al eit shelo la'achar zman. Where she found the dam al eit shelo. She learned earlier that if a person was bail, and then if she finds dam b'shas tashmis, so we know for sure that he was bail and nida. Masha'ingen, if he finds dam, if he finds dam al eit shelo, so again, so we know for sure that he was bail and nida. Masha'ingen, if she finds dam al eit shelo, so if she finds dam right away, before there was time to put her hand tachas hakar v'keset, l'kaneach, so then it was right away, so then, within that time, so then should we assume that she was takareya dam b'shas tashmish, and memela they're both chayav v'chatas. Masha'enkin, if it took more time than that, and if there was already more time until she's already yardim, she was able to yardim namita, and mekaneach paneha, so then we don't assume that b'chlal she was in nida b'shas tashmish. Masha'enkin, if it's in between, in other words, in between the time of tachlis yodel lekar and the time which it takes later minamita, or lasim raglel amita minamita, so then that's considered a suffix, and then since it would be a suffix, so that would cause to bring that wouldn't be an Asham Toli. That wouldn't be an Asham Toli. That's what he said. Lefichach ha'isha shenimtza dam. The case before wouldn't be a suffix. If it was earlier, she would be a chat. Later, it was b'chal not a suffix. But over here, l'chur it's a suffix. Lefichach ha'isha shenimtza dam al eit shelo la'achar zman, or v'hanoisi yivimte b'teich shleisha chadashim. Person marries Yevimte b'teich shleisha chadashim. Now Yevimte, if she's a Yevam attacker, the brother died without children, so it's a mitzvah. There's a mitzvah. Masha'engen, if it's not a mitzvah, if there was a child, if she was muberes, so then it's an eishesach. An eishesach shleid b'makom mitzvah is chayv krisis. So on Neisi Yevimte b'teich shleisha chadashim, he didn't wait for the shleisha chadashim to establish whether she was a muberes and the yolda. Then you do a mentishal rishon ben shiva lachrin. So l'chura she's a suffix whether or not she's his kreva. Eishes achiv shleib makom mitzvah. So the din is before it was a suffix whether she was a nida. Here it is a suffix whether she's eishes ach shleib makom mitzvah. So in these cases, harei l'pturim in akarbon v'chein kol ki yetze be'elu sharein sham isa kavua. So again, the yisod is that in order to be chayiv in Asham Tolu, it has to be that you did something, the person did something, and there's a suffix what he did an isser, but the isser was an isser kavod. There was definitely an isser there. There was chaylev there. There was chaylev there. There was a choise there. There was there was a nida there, there was something there. The question is only whether he was Pegeya in the Isser. Masha'inkin over here, when there's just a suffix, whether there's something there. There's a chticha, we don't know if it's Asr or not. There's a Isha, we don't know if she's a nida or not. There's a woman that we don't know if she's Eish Zachim Shlei B'Makam Mitzvah, Eish Zachim Makam Mitzvah. So in all these cases, that's not called the Isser Kavua, and Memela you're potter. One of the cases the first case was Ochel Chelev, the Sofik and Hoya Kazayis Epachas Megazayis. So Marie Korka says that that's only if we know that it was a Kazayis of Chelev. The question is how much you ate. But if there's a Sofik, whether or not you know that you ate all the Chelev, but you don't know if it was a Kazayis or not, so then we don't consider it an Ikba Yisura. That's what he says. Others argue, they kind of know, the Ram doesn't say that. The Ram says, Achel Chelev, there's a Sofik, if he ate a Kazayis or not. The Ram doesn't specify, there has to be that there was a Kazayis Chelev. That's one dion, b'negei this din. There's another dion, b'negei Shabbos v'chel, v'osim malachas ba'achas me'am, v'ein yedua v'eiz me'am osa. Pashas Tumar is mean hashmoshes between Shabbos and chel. Now the question is it bein hashmoshes between Friday and Shabbos, or is it bein hashmoshes between Shabbos and Sunday? So Tesis and Krisa says that it's only when it's bein hashmoshes between Shabbos and Sunday, because it was already Shabbos, and the question is if Shabbos is still there. Mashenkin, if it's Friday and Shabbos, so we don't really know that it's Shabbos yet. There's a suffix mechatchila if Shabbos started, so that wouldn't go into the gather of Ikba Yisura. So some people want to say that the Ram also holds that way. That the Ram also holds, even though the Ram just says Shabbos v'chil, but nevertheless, it's Shabbos v'chil. And first it was Shabbos and then it was chil, and there's a suffix whether the Shabbos is still nimshach. Basically, so to speak, like there's the Cheska Shabbos is there. And others taina not like that. That this is Yontiv, the Mishnah, they taina know that the Ram doesn't specify. The Ram just writes Shabbos v'chil v'osim malachos be'echad mem. So since the Ram doesn't specify, the Parshas Hadvarim, it makes no difference. If we're talking about the Ben Hashmoshes of Friday night, we're talking about the Ben Hashmoshes of Motzi Shabbos. Halacha Gimel. Ha'echel chaticha ve'edachad eimolei zeh shachalta chelev. After he ate it, the aid is coming over saying you ate chelev and you chayv achatas. Now another aid is saying le'achal chelev, you didn't eat chelev. Or al derech zeh isha imeres ochal, and then there's another isha that's saying le'achal. Is hail v'nikba iser, since there's a nikba iser, because there was an eidacha that's saying achal chelev, and v'hu eini yedei chote le'chote, he doesn't know if the first aid is right or the second aid is right. So then the din is areza maybe oshim toli. And here the Kesef Mishnah says that it's talking about not that the two Eidim came together at the same time, or the Eid that said Le'achal Techelev came first. It's talking about the first Eid came along and said Achal Techelev. And really the Viola, there was no really Psak Din that is Chayiv Achatas. Because if there would have already been a Psak Din that is Chayiv Achatas, like Bezin would have paskin, so then the second Eid wouldn't have been believed. Because Kol Makom Sheminat Eid Echad Erikan Shnaim. So the second Eid is an Eid Echad Makom Shnaim. But over here it's talking about the Eid Echad came and said Achal Techelev. So basically, there's already a Yisod that is Chayiv Chelev, so it's like a Ikba Yisura, and now there's another Eid Echad saying Le'achal Techelev, so the Eid Echad is being Deicha, the first Eid Echad. But on the other hand, since there was already an Ikba Yisura, so therefore it has a din of an Ikba Yisura, and therefore you bring out Ashim Toli. V'chein, Kol Abo Al Eishasish, which She'eid Echad Eimer Mez Baila, and Ve'eid Echad Eimer Leimas, and again it's the same story that the Mefarshim explained, that it's talking about first the Eid Echad said Mez Baila, and then this, and obviously, if the Eid Echad would have said Mez Baila, and then we would establish that Mez, so the second Eid wouldn't have been believed. But over here, the Eid Echad said Mez Baila, so with Pashtus it's Mez Baila, so it was like Ikba that she's Heter, and now the Eid Echad Emalemas, that is, she's Isser. So the din is Chayiv Bashim Tolim. V'hu adin l'sofik Mugureshes, Shaharei Nikbo Ha'isser, she was an Eishes Ish, and the question was whether she was Nizgarsha. Aval Sofik Mugudeshes, but if it was Sofik Mugudeshes, so then it's Leinik B'Yisra, so he's being Mechalik. By Sofik Megurashes, we know she was an Eishes Ish. The question is, did she become Uis Eishes Ish? Al der is there by Mez Bailet, we know that she was a Eishes Ish. Question is, did she become an Almana? Masha'inkin, by Sofik Megurashes, there's a Sofik, whether or not she became a Kudeshes in the first place. So then you don't say that it was Ikba Yisura, because there's a Sofik, whether or not she was Megudeshes in the first place. My says the Mefarshim comes. The Mishnah says that even when you get a Sofik Mekudesh, it depends what the Sofik is. If the Sofik is whether or not it was a Shalapruta or not, so it's Takale Ikbe Yisura. But if there's Trey that are saying Niskacha, and Trey that's saying Le Niskacha, so then it's Trey or Trey, that's considered Ikbe Yisura. And even by Mekudeshes, we'll also say there's an Ashim Toli. That's what he said. The Ram doesn't say it clearly. So basically, the Ram is saying, if there's an Ikbe Yisura, means we know for sure there was an Isser here. And the question is, you ate a chaticha mishnei chatiches, so then that's for sure considered ikba yisura. Now we have situations where we don't know for sure, and if there's a stam suffix, even though there's a yesod for the suffix, a suffix nida, or a suffix that maybe she's ashes actually mokam mitzvah, it's not stam suffix. There's a strong yesod for the suffix, but again, since we don't know, so it's not considered ikbei surah. Then if there's a Metzias where there, Eidechad came said, Achalta Chelev, or an Eidechad came and said along that it was Mezbaila, Le Mezbaila, or these type of, that there's Mamash Agada say this, so that's also called Ikbei Surah, and Benegea Megureshes, if Sofi Megureshes, Sofi Megureshes, so we know that she was once an Eshesish, so Sofi she became Megureshes, so again it's called an Ikbei Surah. Masha'ekin, if there's a Safi Mekudeshes, the Rambam says Lein Nikbeis. We're saying that the Merkavas Mishnah says that there's certain Sveikas by Mekudeshes that would also be considered an Ikbei Yisura. Halacha Dalet. Mi shahoyu lefon of shtei chatiches. Achas shel chelev, achas shel shumen. Va'achal achas men, ubo akum ikelev, va'achal sashneya. So then obviously the Pashtas is the Asham Toli. The fact that later on someone, the akum of the kelev ate the shneya is obviously no relevance to this din. But the second case, first case was he ate the chaticha mishtei chatichas, and the second chaticha ate a akum of or a kelev. Oi, she'achal akum ikelev asor yishena, and then ubo yisro v'achal asashniya. So over here, when he ate the shneya, there was only one. There was not a chaticha mishtei chatichas. There was one that was a suffix shum and suffix kelev. But the pill, this one came from a chaticha mishtei chatichas. The suffix was nefeya for the fact that it was a chaticha mishtei chatichas. Oi, another case. She'achar rishena b'zodin, or shneya b'shgaga. Oi, she'achar rishena b'shgaga, or shneya b'zodin. So in all these cases, hareza chayav b'asham toli. Hail v'hoya sham isakavor, since there was an isakavor, it was a chaticha mishtei chatichas, so whether he ate it while it was still a chaticha mishtei chatichas, or he ate it after there was no longer a chaticha mishtei chatichas, there was only one chaticha. But since this was a chaticha that came from shtei chatichas, and that was the yisod of the suffix, so immediately is chayav and asham toli. If he ate them both bezodin, what does it mean both bezodin? It means he knows that there is a chelev and shuman here, and lepeli ate them both bezodin. So the din is potem mikarbon. He's potem from carbon, side from Rosham Toli and side from Chatas. Achal shteim b'shgaga. If he achal shteim b'shgaga, is maybe chatas. He brings a chatas. He brings achal shteim b'shgaga. Then he's maybe chatas. Then he brings a chatas because he's for sure achal chatas b'shgaga. Now, achal is a rishena b'shgaga, ubo acher v'achal is a shnei b'shgaga. His name chayav b'ashim toli v'chein kol kiyetze b'zeh. So this is the din. The din is that if a person who knows, in the case where achal shnei b'shgaga, he knows for sure that he ate a chela b'shgaga. Masha'enkin, if he, in the case where achal shnei b'mezid, so here we see over here we see very clear this din. Two din we see here very clear. First of all, we see that when a person is a mezid, there's no chayav b'ashim toli. So that's why when he's achal eshneim b'mezid, he ate shneim b'mezid, so achatas is obviously not chayiv. Because since he ate it b'mezid, how could he be chayiv achatas? Even though we know aliba dam is that he ate chaylev, but since he ate it b'mezid, he ate them b'mezid, so he's not chayiv achatas. On the other hand, he's also not chayiv nashim toli. That's what the Rambam says. If he ate both of them b'mezid, what happened? He had two chatichas, one was chaylev and one was shuman. And he ate one of them b'mezid. He ate one of them b'mezid. He knows that there's a suffix, and he eats one of them b'mezid. So the chura, according to those shitas that hold, and shitas are Rambam, that b'mezid, when you go ahead and you eat chaticham shtei chatichas b'mezid, you're chayiv noshim toli. So the chura is right away chayiv noshim toli. So what's the shayla? Maybe you should be chayiv two oshim tolis. One for the first achila, one for the second achila. Each one was a chaticham shtei chatichas. So we see from here not like that. We see for eating b'mezid, you're not chayiv noshim toli. You're only chayiv noshim toli for eating b'shegig. That's number one. And we also see that even though we know for sure that he ate shneim b'mezid, and Memela we know for sure that he ate chaylev, but since he did it b'mezid, so he's not chayiv achatas, even though it wasn't a regular mezid, it was a mezid of eating a chaticha mishtei chatichas. But that mezid of a chaticha mishtei chatichas is not considered a madrega of a shegig, which is enough to warrant a chatas. So it comes out, it's sai, not chayav asham toli, because it's not a shegig, and it's not chayav achatus because it's not a shegig. Which others argue. Others argue, and they taina know. They taina that if you eat b'mezid, when you go ahead and there's a chaticha mishtei chatichas, and you eat one of the b'mezid, you are chayav and asham toli, which is l'chura a clear steer to this halacha. It was a deal about it in Nachreina. The Avnei Nezer talks about it. some Sefer talks about it, but the L'chura, the Pashtus Advarim, and this halacha, the Ramar brings it down, the Pashtus Adin, and this halacha is that when you eat b'mezid from a chaticha mishtei chatichas, there's no chiv oshim toli, and nochmer, even if we know for sure that you ended up eating chaylev because you ate both chatichas b'mezid, and L'chura, each chaticha when you ate was really not 100% you're doing a Maisa Aveira. So then you're not chayiv achatas, even though you know Ali with the emes that you ate chaylev. Halacha hey, chaylev v'neisel lefanov. He has chaylev v'neisel lefanov. Ochel achas mem ve'en yidu ezem mem ochel. Or ishte nide v'achese ime babayis v'shogeg ba'achas mem ve'en yidu ezem mem bol. Shabbos v'yim ha'kipurim v'osim mulacha bein ha'shmoshe shebineim. So he knows for sure that he did mulacha either on Shabbos or Yom Kippur, but he doesn't know which one. So the din is hareze potem mikorban. He's potem mikorban oshim toli. And also ve'eni mevichatas. Shari eni yedei atzmi shel chet k'mei shebiyanu. Knows he can't bring the chatos because chatos asher chote. He has to know the chet that he's bringing it for. He doesn't know if he's bringing it for chaylev, he's bringing it for neser, he's bringing it for ishte, he's bringing it for achese, if for nida or for achese. He doesn't know if he's bringing it for Shabbos or for Yom Kippur. And also ve'eni meivashim toli. Shari yedei bevade shechota. So that's there b'vada shechata, and that's what we said before when he did a malacha and he doesn't know me'ene is a malacha asa, and over there he's chayiv nashim tali. You can't learn kipshute that he did a malacha for sure. We don't know which one is asa because in such a case he wouldn't bring not a nashim tali, not a chatas. That's what we learned the way we learned. There's talking about that he already did another avera. The question is if this is a part of that avera or it's a new avera. Halacha vov. Kol dover shechayovin al vadoi chatas kvu achas. So it's chayovin alei de shalei oshim toli echot. V'chol dover shechayovin al vadoi chatois harbe. If you'd be chay for the vadoi chatois harbe, is chayovin alei de shalei ashom estluin harbe kiminyan achatois ketzad. Shem shem ochel chaylev v'dam v'neseru pigel behelam achas. So the din is chayav arba chatois, like the Rambam Staka said this case earlier. Is kach im nistapikli im ochlon elei ochel el chaticha shel heter shoyi moim do chaticha shel heter do chaticha shel iser. And there's a possibility he ate 4 chatichas. He doesn't know if he ate these 4 chatichas or these 4 chatichas. So the din is maybe arbo hashomas tluim. So he has to bring 4 arbo hashomas tluim. V'chein in nistapikli im oisha shebo le'ishtei. Oy pleinis ha'erva shehoisi imo shechayev aleh shmeini chatoy is the case over there where the yanker that was Baal Serach Bastimna the whole Arichos Advarim where you chayev shmeini chatoys. So the din is areza maybe shmeina hashomas tluim. You have to bring 8 hashomas tluim. Because if he was Baal al Isha Achas, he doesn't know if it was Ishtei, or was that Isha, which Abal is Chayiv Shmeina Chatois, so the din is he has to bring Shmeina Hashomas Tluim. Halacha Zayin. Ha'eichel Chaticha Mishtei Chatichas, v'nestapikle im Shem Chelev Ochel Eshel Shumalach. And then, V'acha Shenelid Le'asofik, so then again, Ochel Chaticha Mishtei Chatichas Acheres, he went ahead and ate Chaticha Mishtei Chatichas Acheres, and again, v'nestapikle im Shem Chelev Ochel Eshel Shumalach. So there was a idea being timed. He knew about the fact that there was a suffix whether he was Ever or Nisr. And then there was another suffix whether he was Ever or Nisr. So the din is Arezim Mevish Te Hashomas Tluim. Akshem She'idiyas Vadi being timed, Mechalik Chatos. Just like if he would have known for sure that he did an Nisr. So that would be Mechalik and Bechai Venu Chatos. Is Kach, Idiyas suffix being timed, Mechalek is La Shomas. Lefichoch Im Ochal. Chamisha Zesi Chele V'Helem Achas. So before we were talking about that there was a idea bein achila lachila. There was that idea bein achila lachila. Al derech b'negeh, if a person ate chelev and nedelay, and v'chazin ate chelev and nedelay. Now b'negeh chatois, we also learned that besides the idea, which is mechalik, bein achila lachila, there is also a chilik b'negeh yediyah and yediyah, nedelay v'chazin and nedelay, lefichach. Im ochal chamisha zesi chelev, behelem achas. He ate lepeil chamisha zesi chelev. He realized that there was a suffix whether he ate this chatichas chelev, and then the chazav nedali idea suffix acheres al hasheni, v'chein al kolachas v'achas is chayiv v'ashim tol al kolachas v'achas. So in other words, by chatois there is a din that yedias shebein achila lachila is machalkis, and then there's also a din that yedias later on is also machalkis. When he's nedali v'chazav and nedali, he's also mechuyev shtei chatois. So that is a b'nei yashim toli. It was Nedele, and then he did it. So it's Mechalkes. And Al Derazet, the Nedele, because of the Nedele, after he did all of them, is also Mechalkes. Halachates. Chaticha shel Shuman, the Chaticha shel Chelev. And Achel Achas Mem, when you do Ezmem, and Vehevi Yoshim Toli. He already brought an Yoshim Toli, because there was a suffix which one he ate, Memela, he brings an Asham Toli. Now v'chazer v'achal is a shneir. He ate the shneir b'shegig. So the din is maybe chatos. V'chenim achal achar is a shneir. If the other one is maybe achar, Asham Toli, K'misha B'yana. I mean, the word v'chein is not like, to understand what the v'chein is. In other words, the first case is he brought an Asham Toli for the first, and for the second he's bringing a chatos because he knows for sure that with the second he did an aveira, even though he already brought an Asham Toli on the first. The Asham Toli is not mechaper on the fact that he for sure did an aveira. Now, Benegay, the second person, he brought an Asham Toli, the other person also is an Asham Toli. Like we learned before, there's no stira between one and the other. Halacha Yud, Chaticha shel Chelev, v'Chaticha shel Chelev Neser. So he has two Chatichas, one is Chelev and the other one's Chelev Neser. But both of them are Chelev. Now, Achel is Echaz Mem, Ve'en Yedo Ezei, so he knows for sure that he ate Chelev. He just doesn't know if he ate Neser. So the din is maybe Chatas ala Chelev, and V'Asham Toli Mishum Neser. He knows for sure he ate Chelev, he doesn't know if he ate Neser. Now, Achel is Hashniya Behelim Sheni. In other words, he realized that he ate one of them, he knew that he ate Chelev, but he doesn't know if he ate Neser. So he became a Choyev. He became a Choyev, a Chatos, and an Asham Toli. Now he went ahead and ate the Shniya Behelim Sheni. So now he has another Chatos for the Chelev, because it was the Behelim Sheni. There was a Yediyah bin Tayim, and now for sure he knows that he ate Neser. So if he wasn't Makriv yet the Asham Toli, so he's not going to bring an Asham Toli. If he was already Makriv the Asham Toli, so he was Makriv. But still, he has to bring now Shalosh Chatois. Achal is Hashniya Be'elim Sheni. So the din is maybe Shalosh Chatois. He has to bring 3 Chatois. One for the first Chelev, and one for the second Chelev, which wasn't the same Helim, and also for the Neser, which he knows for sure that he ate. He doesn't know if he ate in the first one or the second one. Now, Vimhoyi B'Shava Pruta, if this Neser was worth a Shava Pruta, so then it's maybe Oshim Vadai Mishumila. So he has to also bring an Oshim Vadai Mishumila. Because Lepeli was male behegdish, so there's a separate din that since he was male behegdish, so he has to bring an osham for being male behegdish. Now, ochal echad is achas mishteyim. What happens if one person ate one, and then a bo'acher v'ochal is ashniya? So this zeh mevi chatos v'oshim toli. This one brings a chatos and oshim toli. He brings a chatos because he definitely ate neser, but he doesn't know if he ate. He definitely ate chelev, but he doesn't know if he ate neser. Zeh mevi chatos v'oshim toli again. He also definitely ate chelev. He doesn't know if he ate neser. V'chein kol ki